It's something that I found on your floor.
Oh.
All right. So no. Okay.
We got a couple minutes. We're gonna wait till 7 o'clock, but that's what we said we'd do. So. Yeah.
But if it's not good. Ew.
And what is that?
Brett. I know in beer that's like a type of yeast, I think.
Oh, okay.
So like I guess yeasty.
Horse sweat.
Nail polish. Maybe. I've actually smelled that. Not good wine. I think most of these I've gotten.
I don't see it.
Go to the event. Like click on the individual event.
It should be right here.
Because we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's not like on my Facebook page. There's one. Where's she watching? Where are you watching this from on Facebook?
Oh, I see it now.
Oh, did it just take a minute? Yeah.
What is that?
Where'd you find it, Mom? Is
On
it
Terry's.
Oh. We're gonna give everybody just a few minutes to find us. Hopefully you can.
I've done a lot of other ones that just popped up.
No, go to Terry's Facebook.
No, that doesn't do us any good. Oh, I got it.
Maybe it's not letting you because you're a
Moderator.
yeah, because we're live right
Could be. Well, if Craig found it, anybody can find it.
Is he on it?
now. Yeah.
Craig said he found it, but it's not on there.
You're still sitting there, but you're not.
Isn't that weird? Did you answer her? Alright, well, let's get rolling.
All right, so this is What Are You Having? Episode 7. So thanks for joining us. If you don't know, we're in a is it undisclosed or
Undisclosed.
All right.
Disclosed will be
Location. We're in a secret place. So, but we're excited to be here. So,
we're hunkered down for the pandemic.
Yep.
We got supplies.
Yep. We got a few. So, we do have a few announcements to start this off, though. So.
We are going to be closed this weekend. We're closed Sunday anyway, so we're going to go ahead and close up tomorrow so that all of our wonderful help can have a nice, relaxing weekend for Easter weekend.
That's me. So I'll be here.
Yeah, so she'll probably be here, yeah. Or wherever this is, I don't know. And then we'll reopen Monday at 10 o'clock and then be open 10:30, I'm told from the whisper in the back. But whatever. Anyway, and just so you know, you can come in and pick something up. You can call ahead and Allison will get it ready. We can even do curbside. We can do that touchless stuff where we can set it out there for you. You can pick it up or hand it through the car door or whatever. We can also do delivery. I ran some deliveries today thanks to one of our other local businesses. Well, thank you, by the way. And ran about 8 or 9 deliveries today. Yeah. So it was pretty fun. People are excited to get liquor delivered to them, believe me. Anything over $50, we prefer, we've got to have at least $50 worth of an order to get you a delivery. So, and in the Jackson area, if you need something in Cape, just call and we'll probably work something out. Also at the end of this, if you have any questions, our producer will be following along. She's already cracking up, whoever that was. I assume it was Craig. Anyway, she'll be following along on the Facebook page and coming up with any questions. So at the end of this, we'll answer your questions if we can. So please hold those till the end, or go ahead and ask them now and wish us luck on finding them later because she's drinking. So we'll see what happens. So.
Do you want to go? Okay. So to start this out, we were just gonna
Let's do this because there should be wine in this wine tasting.
So we're gonna start off with some Charm Acres Chardonnay. This is the 2016 vintage. So basically, this it's not tiny, but smaller producer out of Sonoma County. They're based in Sonoma Coast. And they're centered around the Russian River Valley. So, knew this was gonna go this way.
We have a horrible producer.
So this actually has a little bit of malolactic fermentation, and basically what that is whenever they put Chardonnay into a barrel, it gives it there's a chemical reaction that happens, and it gives it this very buttery taste to the Chardonnay.
The longer they let it go on the malactic acid.
Right. So this one is not supposed to have as much of that. So this is just a pretty straightforward Chardonnay. So give it a little smell. So there's 3 things that you kind of look for whenever you taste a wine. Whenever you swirl it, especially for the reds, this is really important, but whenever you swirl, you're looking for the color, and you're also looking for the legs on it. So what the legs are is whenever it drips down the glass, how much it sticks to the edge of the glass. So
it tells you it's going to be grippy in the mouth. It's going to stick to the teeth too. And when she talked about color, something a lot of people or somebody taught me was always hold it up against something white. Because white's always going to be the same color. If you try to hold it against brown or black or something, it'll be different. But consistent color of white. So if you swirl it and then hold it against the white, you'll see the colors of whether it's red wine or white wine or whatever. Just kind of a neat little trick somebody taught me a long time ago.
And a way to really tell that this isn't going to be super grippy or super buttery, like with that malolactic, is whenever you do hold it against the white piece of paper, it's not super yellow. So, and then we will go ahead and smell. And whenever you skipped a step.
I didn't skip it. I just wasn't waiting on it.
So whenever you smell what you're looking for, this is actually a really great tool that we have at Barrel. And if you want it, you can email me and I'll send it to you as well. But it's basically an aroma wheel. And they have it for whiskey, tequila, all kinds of things. So tonight, since we're tasting wine, I pulled this, but I actually give this to our staff. And it basically tells you a bunch of aromas that you can smell out of this. So what do you smell?
But it smells good. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I get a little bit of like fruit for sure.
Yeah.
Not citrus really, maybe a little bit of lemon. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. We had some connection issues out here at this undisclosed location, so. Where were we? Oh, so we'll just start at the smell again. So whenever we were smelling it, we were trying to decide what we were
on
thinking.
the nose.
Yeah, on
not
the
the smell, on the nose.
And the aroma that we got is a little bit of lemon, not much, just a hint, and maybe a little bit of like green apple is what I would say.
But see, I didn't get any lemon at all. It was more in like a melon or more of a tropical fruit, maybe.
Maybe pineapple, maybe not lemon, maybe pineapple.
Yeah, maybe.
But what does our producer think of this wine? That's you. What do you think of this wine?
I like it. What, is it in oak barrels or steel?
French oak. Yeah.
I taste citrus. I think
Steel barrels. A lot of Chardonnay is done in steel barrels. Not a lot, but some. And that will have no buttery. So if somebody doesn't like a big buttery Chardonnay, if it's fermented in a steel barrel, then you won't have any of that at all.
Yeah.
So that's something good to know.
Like we have one called Toad Hollow, and it literally says unoaked Chardonnay on the actual label, and they use either steel or cement. I can't remember which one. So
Steel.
yeah. So on the taste now, what are you tasting?
A lot of the same.
Typically from your nose to your smell, it's going to be pretty close to the same because 80% of what you smell is what you're going to taste as well. Occasionally, you'll get something totally different though, but it's pretty
That's
rare.
when you get a crazy wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's dried apricots maybe.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a good one.
So not a lot of citrus, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Pretty good little Chardonnay though.
Right.
Now, when you're sampling wine or tasting wine, you don't have to switch glasses. We just are because, I don't know, just because it was something to do.
Because we're wine snobs.
Yeah. Something like that.
We know what we're talking about.
No.
So the next wine that we're gonna dive into is the Pali Riviera Pinot Noir. So one thing that I forgot to mention about Pali wines, the reason it's called Charm Acres and Riviera, that's actually different neighborhoods within Sonoma. So they're kind of really representing Sonoma. So again, this is from the Russian River AVA. AVA stands for American Viticulture Area. So it's basically an area that they grow wine in. So, but yeah, this is from Russian River Valley and also the Sonoma Coast, which is a sub-AVA of Russian River. So that is that. And this particular bottle, this normally doesn't have it on the back of it, but it says that it's 30% new French oak, and they ferment it up to 8 months. Typically, they don't give you that information on the back of the bottle. And then it says that it was also bottled in May of 2018. So this has been in this bottle for 2 years, basically. So 2 years next month.
Next month.
So.
And we just opened it up. Didn't need, since it's so young, it's not something, this wine's not designed to open up and decant and all that stuff. So
Right.
most Pinots are not. There's some good Pinots that you can, but like Axel Schug, I remember when we talked with him, he said, don't worry about it necessarily. This is not his wine, of course, but Pinots don't necessarily need to open up. It will a little bit, of course, but.
So again, like seeing on this wine, the legs, there is a little more of the drip down on the glass, because this will be a little bit more tannic than that Chardonnay because it has some aging on it, it has some oak. So, a little bit different. And the color is actually a really deep red, but it's still, you can still see through it, so it's still very opaque.
Pinot's very light for a red wine, so you're gonna have that being able to see through it and just kind of a light. For a Pinot, this is a little bit darker than typical though. So.
And one thing that I did read is they only do Pinot and Chardonnay at Pally because they want to be Burgundy style. So in Burgundy, in France, they only grow Pinot and Chardonnay. So that's kind of a cool fact. So what are you getting on the nose?
Some smoke.
Yeah.
Woods maybe.
And that would be due to the being aged, being in a barrel. So
Our producer's really struggling.
So yeah, on this you get some smoke.
Craig loves smoke.
I got a little leather, I think, too,
Yeah.
huh? No?
A little bit.
From Presley, she loves them legs.
Atta girl.
So yeah, a little smoke. Yeah, I would say a little leather, a little bit of some kind of berry, a little, like a hint of it, I would say. Maybe strawberries would be close to what I'm smelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
All right.
Sometimes people will say something and then you smell it and that's just the power of the brain, but
Yeah.
that works for me a lot.
That's how they sell him wine.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. Pretty good little Pinot. So this is a 2017 vintage. I don't think I said that, but which is what we meant whenever we said it's a young wine. So, and the vintage is when they actually pick the grape, not when they bottle it. So,
Because the vintage is based on the year, the season, the way it was, because every year, that's why it's 2017, 2018, so on and so forth. So once the year is over, the grapes, the vines die down. They don't die down, they shut down, and they come back for the next season, and that's why you have those vintages. So, but the vintage is based on when they picked the grapes, not when it was bottled, like she said. So,
and that's why you hear people say, well, 2015 or 13 was a really great vintage. So due to climate and soil and all kinds of crazy other things that affect the vines, that's why you get those really great vintages. So yeah.
Craig's asking a question. What would it pair with?
What would this wine pair with? I would say a really good, like a strong cheese of some sort. So maybe like baked brie, something Yeah, something like hearty like that, because this is a pretty big Pinot.
That's what I was gonna say. You could even eat a steak with this.
Yeah, you could.
It's a big Pinot.
Like a good pork steak, that'd be really good with it.
With some barbecue, a little spicy.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows what goes well with barbecue.
What? Barbecue sauce?
Inside joke.
Oh, okay.
He'll get it.
Yeah, that's what I would say for this one.
But yeah, some good cheeses, bigger cheeses would be good. Like you said, brie, maybe some good Munster.
It's pretty big.
That's a big cheese.
Buzz cheese.
Buzz cheese.
Yeah.
Craig's hungry now.
We'll go get you some cheese. What does our producer think of this wine?
It's good. It
Yeah.
doesn't taste like a Pinot to me.
No? What does it taste like?
More of a cab.
Yeah.
Or even a Merlot a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
It's a big Pinot.
Yeah.
Derek would like this. But Derek would like this.
Yeah.
Cheers, Derek.
All right. And our final wine that we have is Chateau Saint Michel. It's a Cabernet out of the Columbia Valley. With Chateau Saint Michel, they have a couple of different AVAs that they own or not own, but grow wine in and stuff like that. Because they own a lot of property in Washington. So, what?
And instead of Merlot, it's Merlot.
Merlot.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, so this cab is pretty dark in color, and that's due to they actually blend a little bit of Syrah into this cab. That might be why you actually really like it. This is the 2017 vintage, so again, whenever they picked it, this is the year that they picked it. So in Columbia Valley. A couple of just interesting, this estate was actually built in 1912, so it's been around for a while in Washington. And they bought Cold Creek, I think, in 1976, and that's kind of when everything exploded. And then they finally released this Chateau Saint Michel Vintner's collection, and then it just exploded from there. So they do some really great wine, though. So
Nice price point on this too. We can't legally say what the price is though.
What's
is
it in
good.
between?
It's in between 0 and 100.
it's roughly like 17
Close.
to...
So in between 18 and 16?
You're the one that pays the fine, so I guess it's okay. But under 30.
There we go.
So.
That's a good one. Yeah. So on this one, what are you smelling?
I don't know. Let's get some fruit. But maybe some red berries. More stone fruit, I think, though, like cherry.
Okay.
No plums.
Do you not like plums?
Well, plums are fortified, so. Or prunes, I'm sorry. No honeysuckle, I can tell you that. It's a good little wine. It could open up a little bit. This you could lay it down for a couple of years. I wouldn't lay it down more than 5 years, though. It would probably smooth out a little bit. But
And it does have some really great legs on it, and that would be because of the Cab Syrah components in this. So, but
Syrah, a friend of mine always says, if you're gonna drink Syrah, be ready to have purple teeth the next day. Because it just sticks. It's grippy,
Petite Syrah's worse.
and you get that on this wine. You sure do. A lot of that too is from it being from Columbia Valley. A little closer. I can't reach it. I think she's been drinking all day.
I wonder.
She's been on the sauce all day.
What all those back there? Is that what they're sitting
No,
over?
it's not one of those. Those are not, no. Those are the special collection. A lot of people think when you're swirling, you're trying to look hoity-toity or anything. You're not. You're getting that oxygen there. You're kind of trying to open it up. It changes the flavor. If you just pour it in there and take a drink, and then if you take the next drink and swirl and get a lot of oxygen in there and get that going, it'll taste totally different. When you smell it, get that on the nose, and that way it also, as she said earlier, kind of the two go together with taste and on the nose. So then when you do take your first sip, you're actually getting some of that on. You're getting your palate ready to go with the aroma. And then even some people, I do it now out of habit, but just pull air across there as you're taking your drink, just to really get oxygen in your mouth too.
Yep.
It really helps.
I have a question from Jessica Maxwell.
Okay.
What
Hi,
does
Jess.
what does opening it up mean?
So whenever you're opening it up, you're basically aerating the wine. So like he said, whenever you're swirling, you're opening it up. So what that means is you're creating airflow in the wine. So you're giving the wine oxygen so that it can breathe and so that it can really give you everything that you want out of that wine.
This has been sitting in a bottle for 2 years. So it's the 17 vintage, but they've sat in a bottle for 2 years, or a year, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, no, 2 years, yeah, because
Yeah.
this is 2020. But when you open it up, it kind of helps it smooth out a little bit. Sometimes you'll hear people say it's tight. That means it just when you drink it, it's just kind of it's just right there. And when you oxygenate and you open it up a little bit, it just kind of smooths it out a little bit and lets it get the flavor and kind of hits all of your palate and all of your mouth instead of just that one little ball right in the middle.
So
hopefully that answers your question, Jessica. Thank you so much for turning in a question. We appreciate it.
yeah, thanks. Another thing that we were going to talk about is why we're using stem versus stemless. So a big reason why we do that.
We have another question about the opening up.
Okay.
So how long does a normal wine take to open up?
Good question. A regular wine, something like this, which is just it's kind of young. It's not gonna lay down for a long time. But 15, 20 minutes will be good. You'll notice a difference from the first glass to the second glass usually. Even on any wine, you typically will notice that. But a wine that really needs to open up, like a big wine, like maybe a Frank Family Cabernet. That's a pretty big cab and really good stuff, and it can lay down for a while. So when you open that up, like if I was going to serve that tonight, I'd probably open it up about an hour in advance. Something like this, 20 minutes should be fine. You're still going to notice a little difference. It's not going to be that dramatic between the first and the second drink, or first and second glass. But on a bigger wine or something like that, it really helps to open it up.
Another question here from, two questions actually from
Okay.
Craig. Is this a good steak wine, and should you put it in a decanter?
For this, you wouldn't need a decanter because it is so young. Like you said, if you just opened it up 15, 20 minutes before, it's a really good... Huh?
It's not going to get any better.
Right. It's not, well, I mean, it can, but not, it's ready to be drank right now. That's why they made this wine. So it's not going to be one, like he said, it's not going to be one that you lay down forever and ever. It's not going to be, you could, I guess, for this one, but for the purposes that the winemaker made this wine for, it's ready to be drank right now. So
Given the current state of the world, if you have watched the news at all lately, you'll see that there's a curve out there. The same thing applies to wine. It gets to a certain point where it's fantastic at its peak, and then it kind of starts to fall off. I've had wine that's been past its peak, and it just kind of tastes blah, kind of watery almost. Something like this, like I said, it's a 2017 vintage, bottled in 2018, so if it's sat there for 5 years, it may get a little better. It's not going to change a whole lot, but it will go downhill after that. It's not going to taste bad. It's just going to taste bland and blah. So,
And
what was
then
the other question? A steak wine.
food.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can have this with steak very easily. Yeah.
You could also have it by itself. I think this was definitely a cocktail wine as well. So I think this on its own is really great as well. So
There's a decanter behind you.
so yeah, this is a decanter. So if you have a really old wine or something that needs to be decanted, now what's really old? It's a 2011 or
It's not really old.
13 or...
Yeah, like an older vintage.
Like this one right here would be considered old. That's a 95 right there. Yeah.
But no 93.
No, can't get that far back.
So, that would definitely be something that you would decant it. And also, 95, you wouldn't want to wait very long either.
At this point.
Yeah, so typically the older the wine, like whenever it gets really old, you don't want to wait very long to drink it. You don't want to sit, but you would want to decant it because it'll have all kinds of chunks and stuff in it.
Something else about the older wines, they'll tend to have a lot of sediment in them. And decanting is not only for, opening the wine up and letting it breathe, but also for getting all of the sediment out, or a lot of the sediment out. So as you pour it in there, you can keep the sediment right here on the shoulder of the bottle as you're pouring, and that way you don't get it in the decanter. And then also when you pour back out of the decanter, you can save some of that sediment in there. So instead of getting it in your glass, unless you're like me where you forget you're doing it for that reason, and you just pour it in there, you're like, damn it, and get all the sediment in the decanter. And then you get the last glass of the wine and you have all the sediment in your glass. But lessons learned. So the other thing, what else did they ask you? Something else?
Food. Could you drink this with a steak? Yeah, you could definitely have this with a steak. So
it's big enough for sure.
And Terry agrees with you, Allison, that this is very good just by itself.
thanks. I know you've had it a few times on your Thursday night trips.
Not a few times. Maybe you've tried it before. I'm not saying
I
she
said a
drinks
few
lot.
times. I mean, Terry will
All right, so
oh yeah, so stemless versus stem. A big reason why you want a stemmed wine glass is because if your hands are on that wine, it's gonna heat it up. So it will actually change the flavor profile of the wine. So that's pretty much a big reason why if you go to Napa or if you drink wine with somebody that drinks a lot of wine, they'll typically have a stemmed wine glass. Or you come see us at Barrel 131. We don't have stemless, we've got stemmed wine glasses. So that's a big reason why as well. So
something else that people ask a lot about is the temperature. Well, room temperature is what typically a red wine should be served at. Well, if the windows are open and it's the middle of August, room temperature is going to be 100 degrees. As in, I don't know, a 2-story house in Napa in the middle of August, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
Or right now, like we're downstairs, we're in a undisclosed location, which may or may not be underground. And so it's more of a cave-like temperature. So it's going to be a lot cooler, and the humidity is going to be less. So room temperature is whatever room you're in, right? With wine, the reason they call it room temperature is typically because when wine kind of started coming out of Italy and France, the room was a cave, and that's where you would pull the wine from, and then you were drinking it at that temperature. So 60, 65 degrees was considered room temperature, and that's what typically is what people will drink it at. So for a red wine, for a white wine, or closer down to 45 or 50 is typically where you want to be. If you take a white wine right off of the shelf at room temperature, put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, boom, should come out and be right where you need it to be. Even some red wines, even if you chill them just a touch, 5, 6, 10 degrees will make a big difference on the flavor profile. I know when the producer and I were looking before we opened Barrel, we had gone to Atlanta and we found a place, and they had wine on tap, which is where we figured that we would do it, and we have it at Barrel 131. But he had mentioned that before he did that, nobody wanted their red wine chilled at all. And then once he started serving the red wine on tap, it was serving about 55 to 60 degrees. People would go buy a bottle next door, come in and pay the corkage fee, and they would ask him to chill it just a little bit, just to bring it down off of that 70 degrees. So they got used to that flavor profile and what it does. Some wines, it'll open it up, and the fruit and flavors will come out a lot better. Some wines, it'll shut it down, so you got to be careful with that. But typically red wine around 60, 70 degrees, somewhere in there, and you'll be in good shape.
Yep. So a couple of fun questions that we had. What is your favorite wine ever? I think I know the answer to this question.
Well, I haven't drank any since we were there, and I only drank about this much of it. So I'm not sure that really counts, but the Patriarch from Frank family.
Oh, well, okay.
But on a drinker, my favorite would be the Groth Cabernet Reserve is my favorite. See the little red stripe? That's how you know it's the Reserve. So that's my favorite.
Okay.
That one is a 15, and you would have to let that lay down for, it could lay there for another 10 or 15 years. It won't, but you could lay it down for that long. And then once you open it, give it an hour at least. and the producer and I did a tasting one time, and we had 4 or 5 big wines, and they were open for at least an hour. And you really, even after that, when we started them versus when we finished tasting them, they tasted completely different. So really good stuff. But I like Groth. I don't know why, or the first time I had it was that barrel. Yeah. But I don't remember
when
why.
we tasted it on.
But I just really liked it. It hit my palate right. It was just fantastic. The producer and I have been there, and with another couple, that one of which is on here. I don't know if he likes to be mentioned or not, Craig. But yeah, we actually went to Groth. There's the controller for Groth is actually from Southeast Missouri. Huh. Really neat guy. Yeah, Carl. He's a really good dude. Hopefully we get to see him when we go back out in May. Come on, Corona, go away. But really neat place. It's in Oakville, right in the middle of everything. Some of the biggest, baddest, greatest cabs come right out of Oakville, and their reserve block is right next to the winery, and they take real good special care of that. So, what about you?
My favorite, probably ever, that I've ever had was on our trip last time we went out to Napa in September. We went to Melka, and their whole setup and their tasting was phenomenal, but so is the wine. So pretty small production, and it was really cool to meet, they have 3 people that pretty much run the show there, and it was really cool to meet one of Sylvie, that did our tasting, and so not only that, but the wine was incredible.
I would show you a bottle, but somebody I know drank the last one in our cellar. So in this undisclosed location, and he hasn't replaced it yet. So sorry, I can't show you what a Melka looks like.
And so I think my favorite out of their collection though is the red blend that they do out of I think they do one out of Knights Valley. That was a really good red blend. We actually have some at Barrel 131, so if you're looking for any.
And I have a question from Jessica.
Sure.
Have you always been a wine fan?
No. No, before Barrel 131, I did not drink wine. I didn't touch wine. I didn't know what it was. The only time that I had ever drank wine was at communion for my church when I was 10 or 7 or something. I don't know. I was really young, but that was the only experience. And ever since then, I thought wine was terrible. So until we started Barrel 131, and when we went through training and all that, that is when I kind of really loved what wine was all about and really learned about it. Still learning to this day.
Every day.
Yep.
Same for me. I drank sweet wine, and when I say sweet wine, I mean sugar with a kick. It was
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid with a kick. Yeah. So to be able to sit here 3 short years later and drink a big cab or a Syrah or anything like that is just really cool to know we've come that far and enjoy it and genuinely enjoy it. And so thank you, Jessica.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Jessica's a fan of the Milka.
Yep.
Yes. Well, it's her husband is why I don't have one to show you, just so you know.
That might actually be Ronnie that's watching.
No doubt.
And one of the other questions that we had that I kind of was thinking up today, like could we talk about, was what was the first wine where wine really made sense?
For me, it was, I don't even remember the wine, but I remember the moment. And it was one of our vendors at Barrel 131 was sitting there and he was doing a sampling for us to try to sell us some wine. And I asked him a question. And he's a sommelier, and he's worked at several places in Chicago, and now he's selling wine and loving life. Great dude. But I asked him a question. I said, what's the difference between the grapes up on the hill in Napa or in Bordeaux or wherever and down in the valley? And his response was, oh man, the ones up on the top are all just big gnarly vines looking for anything they can get nutrition wise, and the ones down in the valley are real cool and everything. I was like, man, that's just the coolest thing. I don't, like I said, I don't remember the wine, but I remember that moment, and it made sense to me that it's a passion, and it's really cool to be able to go through the wine palette and figure out what you like and don't like.
So for me, I actually remember the exact wine where it just kind of clicked. You were actually there. We had this lady from a South African vineyard come in, and believe it or not, they actually grow wine in South Africa.
If you like grass,
yeah,
and I don't mean marijuana, I mean grass.
So she had a couple of whites and a couple of reds and stuff, and we got to the very end of the tasting, and typically like they go in a white to the bigger, bolder reds. So the last wine that we had was a Pinotage. I don't know really why Pinotage is named Pinotage, but yeah, it's a South African grape, and it just kind of, I was like, oh wow, I'm getting, bacon fat and some cherries, and like I was just naming these things off, and she was like, yeah, you probably also get this, and that's where it just really clicked for me that I was, able to distinguish what was going on in a bottle of wine, and I thought that was really cool. So, and it was called Barista Pinotage, and I still love the wine today. It's really good. So, it pours like a Pinot, actually lighter than the Riviera that we just tried. But it's got all these crazy flavors. It's got smoke. It's just a big, bold wine, but it finishes pretty quick, and it's just really good. So,
Those South African, those wines have a lot of minerality to them.
Yep.
I know you like that. So.
Yep. Paso and South Africa are like my
Washington.
go-to. Yeah, and some Washington, yeah.
Another wine that we're not going to drink tonight or anytime soon, really, and I have no idea if the wine is any good, but Go Blues! Yeah! Reigning champs for 2 years straight.
If they were playing, yeah.
They're still the reigning champs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
As a Patriots fan, I understand that clearly.
Any other questions? No? All right. Well,
One more thing, I gotta say this. Even though the school year got cut short, and so all of the athletics got cut short as well, the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks are the OVC Commissioner Champions. I don't care who says what. When the season finished, we're in first place. That means you're the champs. S.E.
Emma.
Anyway. Cheers to Nate and Brady and the crew for OVC Commissioner Championship. And all the coaches and
all the
players.
athletics, yeah.
And the athletes.
I said coaches and players.
Oh. Aren't-
And
oh.
if you want to comment what your favorite wine is, we'd like to read some of those. So
Yeah. And if you have any other questions or anything, still just comment and we'll respond to you guys. So, yep.
Offline.
Yep.
Thanks a bunch. What are you having? Let us know.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. You can, yep.
Come on, producer.